The morning sun cast long shadows across the Fort Bragg training grounds as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her standard issue M16A4 rifle for the third time. The weapon felt familiar, yet somehow incomplete in her hands. Around her, the other soldiers in the advanced marksmanship program were already settling into their shooting positions, their breathing steady and controlled. Maria had earned her place in this elite program through months of exceptional performance during her deployment in Afghanistan. Her squad leader had recommended her after she consistently outshot every member of her unit, including veterans with twice her experience. But, standing here among the Army's best marksmen, she felt the weight of being different in more ways than one. "Santos, you ready for today's evaluation?" called out Sergeant First Class Thompson, the range instructor. His voice carried across the firing line with the authority of someone who had trained hundreds of soldiers over his 20-year career. "Yes, Sergeant," Maria replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. She knew today's performance would determine whether she advanced to the next level of the program or returned to regular duties with her infantry unit. The other soldiers around her represented the cream of the Army's shooting talent. There was Corporal Jackson, a farm boy from Montana, who could hit targets most people couldn't even see. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez had earned his reputation during 3 tours in Iraq, where his precision had saved countless lives. And then there was Sergeant Williams, whose calm demeanor masked an almost supernatural ability to place bullets exactly where he intended. What made Maria different wasn't just that she was one of only 2 women in the 30-person program. It was something else entirely, something that had been building inside her during months of combat operations overseas. She felt a connection to her weapon that went beyond training and technique. When she looked through her scope, the world seemed to slow down, and she could sense things that others missed. The morning briefing began with Thompson outlining the day's challenge. "Today we're testing your abilities at extended range with moving targets. The qualification standard requires hitting 7 out of 10 targets at distances between 400 and 800 meters. Each target will be visible for exactly 8 seconds. Maria listened as Thompson explained the scoring system and safety protocols. She had aced similar tests before, but something felt different today. During her equipment check, she had requested a modification to her rifle that had raised eyebrows among the instructors. "I need to speak with you after the briefing, Santos," Thompson said, his expression unreadable. When the other soldiers dispersed to prepare their equipment, Maria approached Thompson's position. He was examining a clipboard with her training records, his weathered face showing the concentration of someone trying to solve a puzzle. "Your request for a custom rifle configuration," Thompson began, not looking up from his paperwork. "You want to modify the trigger group and add a specialized scope mount. That's equipment typically reserved for special operations units." Maria had anticipated this conversation. "Sergeant, I believe the modifications would improve my accuracy significantly. During my deployment, I noticed that standard configurations didn't match my shooting style." Thompson finally looked up, studying her face with the intensity of someone who had seen many soldiers come and go. "Santos, you've been in the Army for 4 years. You're good, I'll give you that. But what you're requesting is expensive equipment that usually goes to soldiers with much more experience. I understand the concern about costs, Sergeant, but I'm confident the improvements would justify the expense." "It's not just about money," Thompson replied, setting down his clipboard. "It's about understanding why you think you need equipment that our current top performers don't require." Maria chose her words carefully. She couldn't explain the strange clarity that came over her when she held a rifle, or the way she seemed to know exactly where her shots would land before pulling the trigger. Those weren't things you discussed with instructors who valued concrete evidence over intuition. During combat operations, I consistently outperformed expectations with standard equipment. I believe that with properly configured gear, I could achieve exceptional results. Thompson studied her for a long moment. Around them, other soldiers were conducting equipment checks and zeroing their weapons. The familiar sounds of military training filled the air, bolt action cycling, instructors calling out commands, and the metallic clinks of ammunition being loaded. I'm going to level with you, Santos. Your scores have been impressive, but some of the other instructors think you might be getting ahead of yourself. Requesting specialized equipment before proving yourself at this level sends the wrong message. Maria felt a flash of frustration, but kept her expression neutral. She had heard similar comments throughout her military career. As a young Hispanic woman in combat arms, she was constantly fighting perceptions about what she could and couldn't accomplish. What would I need to prove to get approval for the modifications? Thompson glanced around to make sure they weren't being overheard. Complete today's qualification with a perfect score using standard equipment. Do that, and I'll personally forward your request up the chain of command. Maria nodded, accepting the challenge. She understood that Thompson wasn't trying to discourage her. He was protecting both her and the program's reputation. Recommending expensive modifications for a soldier who hadn't proven exceptional ability would reflect poorly on his judgment. As she walked back to her firing position, Maria overheard a conversation between two other soldiers that made her pause. "Did you hear Santos is asking for custom gear already?" One was saying. "She's been here, 2 weeks? Probably watched too many sniper movies," the other replied with a chuckle. "Thinks she's some kind of special operator." Maria continued walking without acknowledging the comments, but they stung more than she wanted to admit. She had worked harder than most soldiers to earn respect in her chosen field, but there were always those who questioned whether she belonged. At her firing position, Maria began the methodical process of preparing for the qualification. She checked her rifle's zero, adjusted her shooting mat, and arranged her ammunition in the precise pattern that had become second nature during her deployment. Each movement was deliberate and economical, a routine that helped calm her mind and focus her attention. The targets for today's test were sophisticated electronic systems that could pop up at various distances and move laterally across the range. Unlike stationary targets, these required shooters to calculate lead time and adjust for the target's movement while accounting for wind and other environmental factors. "Shooters, prepare for the first string of fire," Thompson announced over the range PA system. 10 targets will appear in random sequence. You have 8 seconds from target appearance to engage. Cease fire when the final target disappears. Maria settled into her shooting position, feeling the familiar comfort of proper body alignment and breathing control. Through her scope, she could see the target zones clearly marked against the distant hillside. The morning air was still, which would help with accuracy, but she knew the conditions could change quickly. Around her, the other soldiers were making final adjustments to their positions. The range fell silent except for the distant sound of whine through the pine trees that bordered the training area. "Commence firing," Thompson called out. The first target appeared at 600 meters, a brown silhouette that popped up from behind an earthen berm. Maria acquired it quickly through her scope, calculated the minimal adjustment needed for the distance, and fired. The target dropped immediately. Target 2 appeared at 450 meters, moving left to right at a steady pace. Maria tracked its movement, led it appropriately, and squeezed the trigger. Another hit. As the test continued, Maria found herself entering the zone of concentration that had served her so well in combat. Each target became a simple problem to solve. Distance, movement, wind, and timing all factored into split-second calculations that felt more like instinct than conscious thought. By the 7th target, she was aware that her performance was flawless, but she forced herself to maintain the same level of focus. In her peripheral vision, she could sense that some of the other soldiers had finished their strings of fire, but she blocked out everything except the view through her scope. Target 8 appeared at the maximum distance of 800 meters, stationary, but partially concealed behind a simulated building. Maria could barely make out the scoring rings, but she adjusted for the distance and sent her round downrange. The target dropped. The final 2 targets appeared in quick succession, testing her ability to transition between different ranges rapidly. Maria engaged both with the same methodical precision that had characterized her entire string of fire. When the last target disappeared, Maria safed her weapon and, remained in position as range protocol required. Around her, she could hear the other soldiers discussing their performance with a mix of confidence and concern that followed any challenging test. Cease fire, Thompson announced. All shooters safe your weapons and remain in position for score verification. The electronic scoring system provided immediate feedback, but official scores require verification by range personnel. Maria knew she had hit all 10 targets, but the scoring rings would determine her final grade. As they waited for results, Corporal Jackson moved closer to Maria's position. "Nice shooting," he said quietly. "You looked completely locked in during that string." "Thank you," Maria replied. "How did you do?" 8 out of 10. Missed a mover at 700 meters and clipped the edge on another one. Should be enough to pass, but probably not by much. Other soldiers were sharing similar stories. Solid performances with 1 or 2 targets that got away. The advanced marksmanship program maintained high standards, and passing scores required consistent accuracy under pressure. Attention on the firing line. Thompson's voice carried clearly across the range. "I'll be announcing scores in firing order. Remember that a score of 70% or higher advances you to the next phase of training." Maria was 5th in the firing order, so she listened as the first 4 scores were announced. 2 soldiers had achieved passing grades, while 2 others would need to repeat the qualification. "Staff Sergeant Santos," Thompson called out. 10 targets engaged, 10 targets hit. Score, 100%. A murmur went through the group of soldiers. Perfect scores on the advanced qualification were rare, even among the program's top performers. Maria felt a surge of satisfaction, but kept her expression neutral. After all scores were announced, Thompson dismissed the group for lunch break. As the other soldiers gathered their equipment and headed toward the dining facility, he approached Maria's position. "That was exceptional shooting, Santos. I've been running this program for 6 years, and I can count on one hand the number of perfect scores I've witnessed." "Thank you, Sergeant. I appreciate the feedback." Thompson studied her with the same intensity she had noticed earlier. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Have you received any specialized training that's not reflected in your personnel file?" Maria considered the question carefully. She had received the same basic and advanced marksmanship training as every infantry soldier, plus some additional instruction during her deployment. Nothing that would explain her current level of performance. "No, certifiant. Just standard training plus combat experience. Your file shows you grew up in urban Los Angeles. No hunting background, no civilian shooting sports. Yet you're outperforming soldiers who've been shooting since childhood." Maria understood his curiosity. Her background didn't fit the typical profile of an elite marksman. Most of the soldiers in the program had grown up around firearms and had been shooting for years before joining the military. "I discovered I had an aptitude for marksmanship during basic training. My drill sergeants encouraged me to pursue it further." Thompson nodded slowly. "Well, regardless of how you develop these skills, you've earned the right to have your equipment request considered. I'll forward it to the program director this afternoon." As Maria packed up her equipment, she reflected on the conversation. She had won the immediate challenge, but she sensed that larger tests lay ahead. The advanced marksmanship program was just the beginning of a journey that would test not only her shooting skills, but her character and determination. That afternoon, Maria reported to the program's administrative office for the promised meeting about her equipment request. The office was located in one of Fort Bragg's older buildings, its walls decorated with photographs of distinguished graduates and awards earned by the program. Captain Harrison, the program director, reviewed her file while she stood at attention. He was a compact man with the precise movements of someone who had spent years perfecting his craft. His reputation as both a marksman and an instructor was well known throughout the special operations community. "Staff Sergeant Santos, Sergeant Thompson speaks very highly of your performance today. He also mentioned your interest in specialized equipment modifications." "Yes, sir. I believe the modifications would allow me to achieve even better results." Captain Harrison set down her file and looked directly at her. The equipment you're requesting is typically issued to soldiers in specialized roles. Before we can approve such a request, we need to understand whether you're interested in pursuing those specialized roles. Maria felt her pulse quicken. She had heard rumors about soldiers who excelled in the advanced marksmanship program being recruited for special assignments, but she had never allowed herself to hope for such an opportunity. I'm interested in any assignment that would allow me to use my skills effectively, sir. That's a diplomatic answer. Santos, let me be more specific. Are you interested in special operations? The question hung in the air between them. Special operations represented the elite tier of military service, with selection processes that eliminated the majority of candidates. For a regular infantry soldier like Maria, it represented both an incredible opportunity and an enormous risk. Yes, sir. I would be honored to be considered for such an assignment. Captain Harrison made a note in her file. Your equipment request has been approved. We'll have the modifications completed by the end of the week. In the meantime, I want you to speak with our psychological evaluation specialist. Maria maintained her composure, but internally she felt a mix of excitement and concern. Psychological evaluation was standard for many special assignments, but it also meant increased scrutiny of every aspect of her background and personality. When should I report for the evaluation, sir? Tomorrow at 0800, Building 4520, Room 112. Don't discuss this conversation with the other students in the program. As Maria left the administrative office, she realized that her simple request for equipment modifications had opened a door she hadn't expected. The next phase of her military career would require her to prove herself in ways that went far beyond marksmanship scores. That evening, Maria sat in her barracks room reviewing the events of the day. Her roommate, another soldier from the advanced marksmanship program, was studying technical manuals for the next day's instruction. You seemed pretty focused during today's qualification, her roommate commented without looking up from her book. Just trying to do my best, Maria replied. I heard you shot a perfect score. That's impressive for someone who's only been here a couple weeks. Maria nodded, but didn't elaborate. She was learning that exceptional performance in the military could be both a blessing and a burden. It opened opportunities, but also attracted attention that wasn't always welcome. As she prepared for sleep, Maria thought about the psychological evaluation scheduled for the next morning. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew it would be another test of her suitability for advanced training. The last thing she saw before turning off the lights was her rifle, now scheduled for modifications that would transform it from a standard infantry weapon into something approaching professional sniper equipment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction for having earned this opportunity through her own efforts and determination. The psychological evaluation office was smaller than Maria had expected, furnished with 2 chairs and a simple desk. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the program's psychological specialist, gestured for Maria to take a seat as she reviewed a thick folder of documents. Staff Sergeant Santos, thank you for coming in today. I understand you've made quite an impression during your time in the advanced marksmanship program. Maria settled into the chair, maintaining the professional posture that had become second nature during her military career. Thank you, ma'am. I'm honored to be here. Dr. Martinez was in her 40s, with the calm demeanor of someone accustomed to conducting high-stakes evaluations. Her office walls displayed certificates from various military psychology programs and a few personal photographs that suggested a life outside the base. This evaluation is part of our screening process for soldiers who show potential for specialized assignments. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to answer as honestly as possible. There are no right or wrong responses. Over the next 2 hours, Dr. Martinez guided Maria through a comprehensive assessment that covered everything from childhood experiences to combat stress reactions. Some questions were straightforward, while others seemed designed to explore the psychological traits necessary for high-pressure assignments. Tell me about your first combat experience, Dr. Martinez said, leaning back in her chair. Maria thought back to her deployment in Afghanistan, remembering the mixture of fear and clarity that had characterized her early firefights. My unit was providing security for a supply convoy when we were ambushed outside Kandahar. The Taliban had positioned themselves in a compound about 400 meters from the road. How did you respond? Initially, I followed standard protocol, took cover, and waited for instructions from my squad leader. But I could see that our return fire wasn't effective because of the distance and the enemy's cover. Dr. Martinez made notes as Maria continued. What happened next? I requested permission to move to a position where I could engage the enemy more effectively. My squad leader was hesitant because it meant leaving our covered position, but I convinced him to let me try. And the result? Maria chose her words carefully, aware that her response would be analyzed for signs of both competence and psychological stability. I was able to neutralize 3 enemy fighters and suppress the others long enough for our convoy to reach safety. No casualties on our side. Dr. Martinez continued taking notes. How did you feel during that engagement? Focused. Everything seemed very clear and methodical. I wasn't thinking about being scared or the danger, just about solving the tactical problem. That's an interesting response. Many soldiers report feeling overwhelmed or confused during their first combat experience. Maria had heard similar comments from other veterans. Her ability to remain calm and analytical under fire had impressed her unit leadership, but sometimes made her feel different from her peers. The evaluation continued with questions about stress management, decision-making under pressure, and her long-term career goals. Dr. Martinez seemed particularly interested in Maria's family background and the factors that had motivated her to join the Army. You grew up in East Los Angeles in a single-parent household. Your mother worked 2 jobs to support you and your younger brother. What made you choose military service? Maria had answered this question many times during her enlistment process, but she sensed that Dr. Martinez was looking for something deeper than the standard response about serving her country. My mother always emphasized the importance of discipline and hard work. She believed that military service would give me opportunities that might not be available otherwise. But honestly, I was also drawn to the structure and the clear standards for advancement. Many people from challenging backgrounds are drawn to the military structure. What made you specifically interested in combat arms rather than support roles? Maria paused, considering how to explain something she didn't fully understand herself. I discovered during basic training that I had abilities that seemed well suited for combat roles. It felt like a waste not to develop those abilities. Your marksmanship abilities. Yes, but also situational awareness and tactical thinking. My drill sergeants noticed that I could assess complex situations quickly and make effective decisions. Dr. Martinez finished her notes and closed the folder. Maria, I'm going to be direct with you. Your psychological profile suggests that you have the mental characteristics we look for in special operations candidates. You demonstrate exceptional stress tolerance, analytical thinking under pressure, and the kind of emotional regulation that's crucial for high-stakes missions. Maria felt her pulse quicken, but maintained her calm exterior. I'm interested in pursuing those opportunities, ma'am. However, I want you to understand what that path involves. Special operations assignments require sacrifices that go beyond physical training. You'll spend extended periods away from family and friends. You'll face situations where the margin for error is essentially zero. And you'll need to maintain operational security that can be isolating. I understand the challenges, ma'am. I believe I'm prepared for them. Dr. Martinez studied Maria's face with the practiced eye of someone who had evaluated hundreds of candidates. I'm going to recommend you for the next phase of evaluation. That will involve additional testing with personnel from special operations units. Are you prepared for that level of scrutiny? Yes, ma'am. Good. Report to Captain Harrison tomorrow morning. He'll brief you on the next steps. As Maria left the evaluation office, she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Each step forward seemed to raise the stakes higher, but she was determined to see how far her abilities could take her. That evening, Maria called her mother from the base phone center. It had been weeks since they had spoken, and she wanted to share her news without revealing classified details about her training. Mija, you sound different, her mother said in the mix of English and Spanish that had characterized their household conversations throughout Maria's childhood. Different how, Mama? More serious. More focused. Is everything okay? Maria smiled, remembering how her mother had always been able to read her mood through subtle changes in her voice. Everything's fine. Actually, better than fine. I'm being considered for some advanced training opportunities. What kind of opportunities? I can't discuss the details, but they're recognizing that I have some special abilities that could be useful in important assignments. Her mother was quiet for a moment. You always were different, even as a little girl. You could focus on things for hours when other children got bored after minutes. Your teacher said you had an unusual ability to concentrate. Maria had heard these stories before, but tonight they seemed to carry additional significance. Do you think I should pursue these opportunities? Mija, you've worked hard to get where you are. If they think you have special talents, you should use them. But remember that no matter how far you go or what you accomplish, you're still my daughter. After ending the call, Maria walked back to her barracks through the quiet evening air. Fort Bragg felt different somehow, as if she was seeing it through new eyes. The base that had been her home for the past month was beginning to feel like a stepping stone to something larger. The next morning, Maria reported to Captain Harrison's office at exactly 0800. She had spent extra time on her appearance, ensuring that her uniform was perfect and her bearing reflected the professionalism expected of a soldier being considered for special assignments. Captain Harrison was reviewing documents when she entered, but he looked up immediately and gestured for her to take a seat. Staff Sergeant Santos, Dr. Martinez speaks very highly of your psychological evaluation. She believes you have the mental characteristics necessary for special operations work. Thank you, sir. I'm honored by her assessment. However, psychological suitability is just one factor in our selection process. Over the next 2 weeks, you'll undergo additional evaluations that will test your physical capabilities, tactical knowledge, and ability to work under extreme pressure. Captain Harrison opened a folder and removed several documents. These evaluations will be conducted by personnel from various special operations units. Some tests will be individual, while others will require you to work as part of a team. Maria accepted the documents, noting that most of the details were classified above her current clearance level. What should I expect during these evaluations? Expect to be challenged in ways that go beyond anything you've experienced in the regular Army. The evaluators will be looking for specific qualities that can't be taught: instinctive tactical thinking, leadership under pressure, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing situations. I understand, sir. Captain Harrison leaned forward slightly. I want to be clear about something, Santos. The soldiers who conduct these evaluations have years of experience in special operations. They can identify candidates with potential very quickly, but they can also spot those who are out of their depth. Don't try to pretend to be something you're not. I'll do my best to demonstrate my actual capabilities, sir. Good. Your first evaluation begins tomorrow at 0500. Report to Building 7422 in full field gear. And Santos? Yes, sir. Get a good night's sleep. You're going to need it. That afternoon, Maria received her modified rifle from a base armorer. The weapon looked similar to her standard M16A4, but the improvements were immediately apparent. The trigger had been adjusted to provide a crisp, consistent pull. The scope mount was precisely machined to ensure perfect alignment. Most importantly, the barrel had been replaced with a heavy-profile version that would provide better accuracy at extended ranges. Sergeant Johnson, the armorer, walked her through the modifications with the enthusiasm of someone who took pride in his craft. This is some of the finest work I've done, Staff Sergeant. The trigger breaks at exactly 3.5 pounds, and the scope mount is accurate to within 1 minute of angle. Maria shouldered the weapon, immediately noticing the improved balance and the smooth operation of the modified trigger. It feels completely different. It should. We've basically created a precision instrument rather than a standard infantry weapon. You need to re-zero it, but I expect you'll see significant improvement in your accuracy. That evening, Maria took her modified rifle to the base range for initial testing. Even with basic iron sights, she could feel the difference in the weapon's performance. Each shot broke cleanly, and the heavier barrel reduced the vibrations that could affect accuracy. As she adjusted the scope and conducted her zeroing process, Maria reflected on how quickly her situation had changed. 2 weeks ago, she had been a regular infantry soldier, hoping to improve her marksmanship skills. Now she was being evaluated for special operations assignments with equipment that most soldiers never had the opportunity to use. The zeroing process went smoothly, with the modified rifle consistently placing shots within a 2-inch group at 100 meters. Maria was impressed by the weapon's performance, but she also understood that the equipment was only as good as the person using it. As darkness fell over the range, Maria packed up her equipment and returned to her barracks. Tomorrow would bring the first of her special operations evaluations, and she wanted to be mentally and physically prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Her roommate was studying when Maria entered their room, but she looked up with obvious curiosity. "I heard you got some special modifications to your rifle. Must have cost a fortune." "The Army decided I could benefit from better equipment," Maria replied diplomatically. "That's pretty unusual for someone at our level. You must have really impressed somebody." Maria nodded, but didn't elaborate. She was learning that her advancing situation required discretion about details that might seem routine to her, but could affect the perceptions of others. As she prepared her gear for the next day's evaluation, Maria thought about the path that had brought her to this point. From her childhood in Los Angeles, to basic training, to combat deployment, to the advanced marksmanship program, each step had built on the previous one in ways she could never have anticipated. Tomorrow would bring new tests and new opportunities to prove herself. But tonight she allowed herself a moment of confidence in her preparation and her abilities. Whatever challenges the evaluators had planned, she was determined to meet them with the same focus and determination that had carried her this far. The last thing Maria did before sleeping was to clean and inspect her modified rifle one final time. The weapon represented more than just improved equipment. It was a symbol of the Army's investment in her potential and her own commitment to excellence. Tomorrow, she would have the chance to demonstrate whether that investment had been wise. The pre-dawn darkness at Fort Bragg felt different as Maria made her way to Building 7422. Her modified rifle was secured in a tactical case, and her field gear was arranged with the precision that had become automatic during her military service. At 0455, she stood outside the unmarked building, waiting for instructions. The door opened exactly at 0500, revealing a tall man in multicam fatigues with no visible rank insignia. His bearing and movements suggested extensive military experience, but his casual appearance contrasted sharply with the formal atmosphere of most Army training environments. "Santos?" he asked, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Yes, sir. I'm Dave. Follow me." The interior of Building 7422 was unlike any military facility Maria had seen. Instead of the standard government-issue furniture and motivational posters, the rooms contained sophisticated training equipment and planning materials that suggested serious operational capability. Dave led her to a briefing room where 2 other men waited. One appeared to be in his 30s with the compact build of someone who had spent years in physical training. The other was older, perhaps in his 40s, with graying hair and the weathered appearance of extensive field experience. "Gentlemen, this is Staff Sergeant Santos. Santos, meet Mike and Tom. We'll be conducting your evaluations over the next several days." Maria nodded to each man, noting their careful assessment of her appearance and bearing. She sensed that the evaluation had already begun, even though no formal instructions had been given. "Have a seat," Dave said, gesturing toward a chair facing the 3 evaluators. "We're going to start with some basic questions about your background and motivation." The questioning that followed was unlike anything Maria had experienced during her regular Army training. Instead of focusing on technical knowledge or military procedures, the evaluators seemed interested in understanding how she thought and made decisions. "Tell us about a time when you had to make a split-second decision that affected other people's safety," Mike asked, leaning back in a chair with the relaxed posture of someone conducting a casual conversation. Maria thought back to her deployment, selecting an incident that demonstrated her decision-making ability without revealing classified operational details. During a patrol in Afghanistan, our convoy was stopped by what appeared to be a roadside bomb. Standard procedure was to halt and wait for explosive ordnance disposal, but I noticed movement in a building that suggested we were being set up for an ambush. "What did you do?" Tom asked, his expression revealing nothing about his assessment of her response. "I recommended to my squad leader that we move the convoy immediately rather than waiting for EOD. I explained what I had observed and suggested an alternate route that would get us away from the potential ambush site." And Dave prompted. My squad leader initially hesitated because moving without clearing the suspected IED violated standard protocol. But he trusted my judgment and ordered the convoy to move. About 5 minutes after we cleared the area, we heard explosions and small arms fire from the location where we had been stopped. The three evaluators exchanged glances, communicating with the subtle signals that Maria was beginning to recognize as characteristic of special operations personnel. "How did you know it was an ambush rather than just suspicious activity?" Mike asked. Maria paused, trying to articulate something that had felt more like instinct than conscious analysis. The movement pattern was too coordinated for civilians going about normal business. The timing of their positioning relative to our convoy suggested they were responding to our presence rather than conducting routine activities. "That's good tactical awareness," Tom commented. "But how confident were you in your assessment?" "Confident enough to recommend immediate action, but I also understood that I could have been wrong. I tried to present my observations in a way that gave my squad leader the information he needed to make his own decision." Dave made notes on a pad, while the other two continued their questioning. The evaluation covered scenarios that tested her judgment, leadership potential, and ability to work with incomplete information under pressure. After 2 hours of questioning, Dave announced a break. "We'll reconvene at 1,000 hours for the physical assessment. Get some breakfast and hydrate properly." Maria used the break to grab a quick meal at the dining facility and to mentally prepare for whatever physical challenges lay ahead. She had maintained excellent fitness throughout her military career, but she knew that special operations evaluations tested capabilities that went beyond standard Army fitness requirements. When she returned to Building 7422, the evaluators had changed into physical training gear. Dave handed her a sheet of paper with instructions for the physical assessment. "This isn't a standard PT test," he explained. "We're looking at functional fitness, endurance under stress, and your ability to maintain performance when you're physically challenged." The physical assessment began with basic exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups, but the standards were significantly higher than regular Army requirements. Maria completed each exercise within the specified time limits, drawing on the conditioning she had maintained through months of intensive training. "Not bad," Mike commented as Maria finished her final pull-up. "Ready for the fun stuff?" The fun stuff turned out to be a grueling obstacle course that combined elements of strength, agility, and problem-solving. Some obstacles required pure physical capability, while others demanded tactical thinking and adaptability. At one station, Maria had to crawl through a series of tight spaces while carrying her full equipment load. At another, she navigated a rope course that tested her balance and upper body strength. The most challenging obstacle required her to solve a mechanical puzzle while hanging from a climbing wall. Throughout the course, the evaluators observed her performance with the clinical detachment of scientists conducting an experiment. They took notes, compared times, and occasionally asked questions about her approach to specific challenges. The final element of the physical assessment was a timed run while carrying a weighted pack. The distance was 5 miles over terrain that included hills, streams, and dense vegetation. Maria had completed similar exercises during her infantry training, but never while being evaluated for special operations selection. As she ran, Maria focused on maintaining a steady pace that would allow her to finish strong rather than burning out early. The weighted pack felt familiar from her deployment experience, and the terrain reminded her of training exercises that had once seemed impossibly difficult, but now felt manageable. The evaluators followed in a vehicle, tracking her progress and noting her performance at various checkpoints. When Maria crossed the finish line, she was exhausted but satisfied with her effort. Time was competitive, Dave announced, consulting his stopwatch. Technique was solid, and you maintained good situational awareness throughout the course. The afternoon session focused on tactical scenarios that tested Maria's ability to think and act under simulated combat conditions. Using training ammunition and realistic props, the evaluators created situations that required quick decision-making and precise execution. In the first scenario, Maria was given a mission to neutralize enemy personnel positioned at various locations around a mock village. She had to identify targets, assess threats, and engage enemies while avoiding civilian casualties represented by cardboard figures. The scenario tested not only her marksmanship skills, but also her ability to move tactically through unfamiliar terrain while maintaining awareness of multiple threats. Maria drew on her combat experience and advanced marksmanship program training to complete the mission efficiently. Interesting approach to the church building, Tom observed as they conducted the after-action review. Most candidates try to engage for maximum distance, but you chose to get closer for a better angle. Maria had noticed that the long-distance shot required her to fire over the heads of civilian figures, while a closer position provided a cleaner engagement angle. I wanted to minimize the risk of collateral damage. Good thinking. That kind of tactical judgment is exactly what we're looking for. The final scenario of the day was the most challenging. Maria was given a team of 2 other soldiers and tasked with planning and executing a simulated rescue mission. The scenario required coordination, communication, and the ability to adapt when initial plans proved inadequate. Maria found herself naturally taking charge of the planning process, drawing diagrams, and assigning roles based on each team member's strengths. When the simulated mission began, she had to coordinate movement, communicate with her team members, and make real-time adjustments as the situation evolved. The mission was successful, but not without challenges that tested the team's ability to work together under pressure. During the after-action review, the evaluators questioned each team member about their experience and assessed how effectively Maria had functioned as a leader. You adapted well when the original plan fell apart, Mike commented. But how do you think you could have improved your initial planning? Maria considered the question carefully. I should have spent more time developing contingency plans for different scenarios. We succeeded, but we had to improvise more than I would have liked. That's a mature assessment. Most people focus on the successful outcome and ignore the process improvements they could make. As the day concluded, Dave approached Maria with additional instructions for the following day. Tomorrow we'll focus on your marksmanship abilities with your new equipment. We want to see how you perform under conditions that simulate real-world operational requirements. Maria felt a surge of excitement mixed with nervousness. The marksmanship evaluation would test the skills that had brought her to the attention of the special operations community in the first place. That evening, Maria spent time maintaining her equipment and mentally reviewing the day's events. The evaluations had been more comprehensive and challenging than she had expected, but she felt confident about her performance. Her roommate was curious about her day, but Maria deflected specific questions with general comments about training exercises. She was learning that operational security wasn't just about protecting classified information. It was also about maintaining the professional discretion expected of someone being considered for sensitive assignments. As she prepared for sleep, Maria reflected on how much her life had changed since requesting modifications to her rifle. Each step forward had revealed new opportunities and new challenges, but also increased expectations about her capabilities and professionalism. Tomorrow's marksmanship evaluation would test the skills that had started this entire process. Maria was confident in her abilities, but she also understood that special operations standards were significantly higher than anything she had previously encountered. The last thing she did before sleeping was to inspect her modified rifle one more time. The weapon had performed flawlessly during the limited testing she had been able to conduct, but tomorrow would provide the first real opportunity to demonstrate its capabilities under evaluation conditions. Whatever challenges the evaluators had planned, Maria was determined to prove that their investment in her potential had been justified. The path to special operations was becoming clearer, but she knew that earning a place in that elite community would require her to exceed every standard they set. The advanced marksmanship range was unlike anything Maria had seen during her time at Fort Bragg. Instead of the standard firing positions and simple targets she was accustomed to, this facility featured sophisticated target systems, varied terrain, and environmental conditions that could be modified to simulate real-world operational scenarios. Dave met her at the range entrance at 0530, carrying a folder of documents and wearing the same casual demeanor that had characterized all their interactions. "Ready to show us what that modified rifle can do?" "Yes, sir," Maria replied, adjusting the tactical case that contained her weapon. "Today's evaluation will test your abilities under conditions that mirror actual special operations missions. We're not interested in competition shooting or parade ground precision. We want to see how you perform when lives depend on your accuracy." As they walked toward the firing line, Dave explained the evaluation structure. "You'll face 6 different scenarios, each designed to test specific aspects of operational marksmanship. Some will be individual challenges, while others will require you to support simulated team operations." The first scenario was established at a distance of 400 meters, with multiple targets arranged to simulate a hostage situation. Cardboard figures representing hostages and terrorists were positioned in a realistic indoor environment, with minimal spacing between threat and non-threat targets. Your mission is to neutralize 3 enemy personnel while avoiding harm to 4 hostages, Dave explained, handing Maria a detailed briefing card. "You have unlimited time to plan your shots, but once you begin engaging, you must complete the mission within 60 seconds. Maria studied the target array through her scope, noting the precise positioning that made this scenario particularly challenging. The terrorists were positioned to use hostages as partial cover, requiring her to find shooting angles that would ensure clean hits without risk to innocent personnel. After 5 minutes of observation and planning, Maria settled into her shooting position and began the engagement. Her first shot dropped the terrorist farthest from any hostage, giving her a clear baseline for the weapon's performance under these conditions. The modified rifle performed exactly as expected, placing the bullet precisely where her scope indicated. The second target required a more difficult shot, as the terrorist was positioned behind a hostage with only his upper torso exposed. Maria calculated the angle carefully and fired, watching through her scope as the target dropped immediately. The final target presented the most challenging scenario, a terrorist holding a hostage with minimal separation between them. Maria studied the situation for several seconds, identifying a narrow window that would allow her to engage the threat without endangering the innocent personnel. When she fired, the bullet struck exactly where intended, completing the scenario within the specified time limit. Dave approached her position to verify the results and conduct the after-action review. "All 3 targets neutralized, 0 civilian casualties," he announced, checking each target carefully. Shot placement was precise on all engagements. "How confident were you about that final shot?" Maria considered the question, remembering the careful calculation required for the difficult angle. "I was confident in the shot placement, but I took extra time to ensure I had the correct angle. In a real situation, I would have taken the shot." "Good answer. Confidence without recklessness is exactly what we want to see." The second scenario moved to 600 meters and introduced environmental factors that would affect bullet trajectory. Wind flags positioned along the range indicated varying conditions that changed the ballistic equation for each shot. "This scenario simulates providing overwatch for a team operation," Dave explained. "You'll have 5 targets that will appear at random intervals. Each target is visible for only 10 seconds, and you must engage successfully while accounting for environmental conditions. Maria studied the wind patterns and made preliminary adjustments to her scope settings. The varying wind conditions meant that each shot would require different compensation, testing her ability to make rapid ballistic calculations under pressure. When the scenario began, the targets appeared in random sequence across the 600-meter range. Maria engaged each one successfully, reading the wind conditions and adjusting her aim accordingly. The modified rifle's consistent performance allowed her to focus on environmental factors rather than compensating for weapon inconsistencies. 5 for 5, Dave announced when the scenario concluded. Your wind reading was particularly impressive on targets 3 and 4. The third scenario tested Maria's ability to engage multiple targets at varying distances within a compressed time frame, set up to simulate a convoy ambush. The exercise required her to transition between targets at 300, 500, and 800 meters while supporting a simulated friendly force movement. As Maria prepared for this scenario, she noticed that additional evaluators had arrived to observe her performance. Among them was a woman in her 30s whose bearing and equipment suggested significant special operations experience. Staff Sergeant Santos, Dave said, "I'd like you to meet Sarah. She's here to observe your performance and provide additional assessment." Sarah nodded professionally, but didn't elaborate on her background or purpose. Maria sensed that this evaluation was becoming increasingly important, with higher-level personnel taking interest in her capabilities. The convoy scenario proved to be the most physically and mentally demanding challenge yet. Maria had to engage targets rapidly while simulating movement between firing positions, all while maintaining the accuracy necessary to support friendly forces in contact. The scenario began with targets appearing at 800 meters, requiring maximum range precision under time pressure. As Maria engaged these distant threats, additional targets appeared at closer ranges, forcing her to transition quickly between different firing solutions. The modified rifle performed flawlessly throughout the engagement, allowing Maria to place accurate fire at all ranges while maintaining the rapid pace required by the scenario. Her final time was competitive, and her accuracy was perfect across all target engagements. "Excellent performance," Sarah commented during the after-action review. "Your ability to maintain accuracy while transitioning between different ranges suggests that you have the instinctive ballistic sense we look for in precision marksmen." The fourth scenario introduced night vision equipment and tested Maria's ability to perform under low-light conditions. Using sophisticated night vision scopes, she had to engage targets in near-complete darkness while accounting for the different sight picture and reduced depth perception that characterize night operations. Maria had limited experience with night vision equipment, but she adapted quickly to the different visual environment. The targets were positioned to simulate a night raid scenario, with precise timing requirements that left no room for hesitation or second-guessing. Despite the unfamiliar equipment and challenging conditions, Maria completed the night scenario successfully. Her adaptation to the night vision system impressed the evaluators, who noted her ability to maintain accuracy despite the technological challenges. Night operations are a critical capability for special operations units, Dave explained during the debrief. Your performance suggests that you could adapt to advanced equipment and techniques with appropriate training. The fifth scenario was the most complex yet, requiring Maria to coordinate with a spotter while engaging targets at extreme range. The spotter was Tom, one of her original evaluators, who provided wind readings and target information while Maria focused on shot execution. The targets for this scenario were positioned at 1,000 meters, pushing the limits of her equipment and requiring perfect coordination between spotter and shooter. Maria had never attempted shots at this distance, but the modified rifle's capabilities made such precision possible. Working with Tom, Maria learned to trust information from her spotter while maintaining her own situational awareness. The communication between them had to be precise and efficient, as target exposure times were limited and environmental conditions changed constantly. After successfully engaging 3 targets at extreme range, Maria felt a new level of confidence in her abilities. The combination of her natural talent, intensive training, and superior equipment had allowed her to perform at a level she hadn't previously imagined possible. "Outstanding shooting," Tom commented as they reviewed the scenario results. "Your ability to integrate spotter information while maintaining your own ballistic calculations is exactly what we need in operational environments." The final scenario of the day was designed to simulate the psychological pressure of real combat operations. Using realistic sound effects, time pressure, and competing priorities, the evaluators created an environment that tested Maria's ability to maintain precision while under extreme stress. As the scenario began, Maria found herself engaging targets while dealing with simulated explosions, radio communications, and time-critical mission requirements. The psychological pressure was intense, but she drew on her combat experience to maintain focus on the immediate task. Despite the distractions and pressure, Maria's performance remained consistently accurate. She engaged all targets successfully while demonstrating the kind of mental discipline that separated elite marksmen from merely skilled shooters. When the final scenario concluded, the evaluators gathered for a private discussion while Maria cleaned and secured her equipment. She could see them reviewing her scores and discussing her performance, but their expressions revealed nothing about their conclusions. After 15 minutes, Dave approached her position with what appeared to be official documentation. "Staff Sergeant Santos, we need to discuss your performance and potential next steps." Maria followed Dave to a private briefing room where Sarah and the other evaluators waited. The atmosphere was professional, but more serious than previous debriefs, suggesting that important decisions were being made. "Your performance today was exceptional by any standard," Sarah began, consulting a folder of evaluation results. "You demonstrated the technical skills, adaptability, and mental discipline that we require for advanced special operations assignments." Maria felt her heart rate increase, but maintained her professional composure. "Thank you, ma'am. However," Sarah continued, "exceptional marksmanship is just one component of special operations capability. Before we can make final recommendations about your future assignments, we need to conduct one additional evaluation." Dave opened another folder and removed several documents. "Tomorrow you'll participate in a comprehensive field exercise that will test all aspects of your special operations potential. This exercise will be more challenging than anything you've experienced so far." "What can I expect during this exercise?" Maria asked. "A realistic scenario that requires you to demonstrate tactical thinking, leadership, physical capability, and technical skills in an integrated environment," Sarah replied. "You'll be working with other candidates and experienced operators to complete a complex mission." As the briefing concluded, Maria understood that she was approaching the final phase of her evaluation process. Everything she had accomplished over the past weeks had led to this point, and tomorrow's exercise would determine whether she earned a place in the special operations community. That evening, Maria spent time reviewing her equipment and mentally preparing for the comprehensive evaluation ahead. Her modified rifle had performed perfectly throughout the day's scenarios, giving her confidence in her technical capabilities. But she also understood that tomorrow's challenge would test aspects of her character and capability that went beyond marksmanship. The evaluators were looking for complete operators who could contribute to team missions under the most demanding conditions. As she prepared for sleep, Maria reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From her initial request for rifle modifications to tomorrow's final evaluation, each step had revealed new capabilities and new opportunities that she had never imagined possible. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, she was determined to demonstrate that she deserved a place among the military's elite operators. The path had been longer and more demanding than she had expected, but she was ready to prove herself at the highest level. The final evaluation began before sunrise at a remote training facility deep within Fort Bragg's extensive ranges. Maria arrived at 0430 to find a complex operational environment that simulated a real-world special operations mission. Multiple buildings, varied terrain, and sophisticated training aids created an atmosphere that felt more like actual combat preparation than routine evaluation. Sarah met her at the command post, accompanied by several personnel whose appearance and bearing clearly indicated extensive special operations background. Unlike the casual atmosphere of previous evaluations, today's exercise carried the serious tone of actual mission planning. Staff Sergeant Santos, today's exercise will test your ability to integrate all aspects of special operations capability, Sarah explained, gesturing toward a detailed terrain model. You'll be working with a team to plan and execute a complex mission that requires precise coordination and flawless execution. Maria studied the terrain model, noting the intricate details that suggested months of preparation for this evaluation. Buildings were positioned to create realistic urban combat scenarios, while natural terrain features provided additional challenges that would test tactical movement and concealment. Your team consists of 4 other candidates plus 2 experienced operators who will serve as team leaders, Sarah continued. Your role will be that of precision marksman, but you'll also be expected to contribute to planning and decision-making throughout the mission. As the briefing continued, Maria met her teammates for the exercise. The other candidates represented different military specialties, each being evaluated for different aspects of special operations capability. The 2 team leaders were quiet professionals whose experience was evident in their efficient movement and careful attention to detail. The mission scenario was complex and realistic. Intelligence indicated that high-value targets were located in a compound defended by multiple enemy personnel. The team's objective was to infiltrate the compound, neutralize specific threats, and extract critical intelligence while avoiding civilian casualties. Maria's role required her to provide overwatch and precision fire support from a concealed position approximately 800 meters from the target compound. She would need to coordinate with the assault team through radio communications while maintaining situational awareness and the ability to engage threats as they developed. The planning phase tested the team's ability to work together under the pressure of detailed mission requirements. Each team member contributed expertise from their specialty area, while the team leaders guided the overall process. Maria found herself naturally integrating into the planning discussions, offering insights based on her marksmanship capabilities and tactical experience. Santos, what's your assessment of the sniper positions around the compound? Asked Mike, one of the team leaders. Maria studied the terrain model carefully, identifying positions that would provide the best fields of fire while offering concealment from enemy observation. Position Alpha offers the best overall coverage, but it's exposed to counterfire from the northeast building. Position Bravo has limited fields of fire, but better concealment. Which would you choose? Position Alpha, with a contingency plan to move to Bravo if we receive counterfire. The mission's success depends on our ability to provide accurate support during the assault. Mike nodded approvingly. Good analysis. Factor that into your individual planning. As the team completed their mission planning, Maria prepared her equipment for the demanding exercise ahead. Her modified rifle was configured with night vision capability, as the mission would begin in pre-dawn darkness and continue into daylight hours. The insertion phase tested the team's ability to move tactically through challenging terrain while maintaining operational security. Maria carried her full equipment load, plus additional ammunition and communication gear, but the weight felt manageable after months of intensive physical conditioning. Moving through dense forest in complete darkness, the team demonstrated the precise coordination that characterized professional special operations units. Each member maintained proper spacing and noise discipline while navigating toward their objective using only night vision equipment and careful terrain reading. Maria's infiltration to her overwatch position required individual movement across 600 meters of open ground while avoiding simulated enemy patrols. Using the concealment and tactical movement techniques she had learned throughout her training, she reached her position undetected and establish communications with the assault team. From her concealed position, Maria had clear observation of the target compound and surrounding area. Through her scope, she could see the realistic training environment that had been created, complete with role players representing enemy personnel and civilians who complicated the tactical situation. Overwatch in position, Maria whispered into her radio headset, beginning the careful observation process that would guide the team's assault. As dawn approached, the compound began showing signs of activity. Role players moved through the buildings and surrounding area in patterns that simulated realistic enemy behavior. Maria tracked their movements while providing intelligence updates to the assault team. I count 6 individuals in military-style clothing, plus 4 apparent civilians, she reported. 2 armed personnel on the north building rooftop, 1 patrolling the courtyard, 3 others moving between buildings. The assault team acknowledged her reports while continuing their own approach to the compound. The coordination between Maria's Overwatch position and the ground team required constant communication and mutual support as the situation developed. When the assault began, Maria's role became critical to mission success. As the team moved toward their objectives, she provided precision fire to suppress enemy positions and eliminate threats that could interfere with the assault team's movement. Her first engagement came when an enemy role player attempted to bring a crew-served weapon to bear on the advancing team. Maria's shot neutralized the threat before it could affect the assault, demonstrating the value of precise Overwatch support. Throughout the compound assault, Maria engaged multiple targets while maintaining constant awareness of friendly personnel locations. The modified rifle performed flawlessly, allowing her to place accurate fire at ranges from 200 to 800 meters as the tactical situation evolved. The most challenging moment came when the assault team encountered unexpected resistance that threatened to compromise the mission. 2 enemy role players had positioned themselves to ambush the team from a concealed location that wasn't visible from ground level. I have 2 threats in the southeast building, 2nd floor, preparing to engage friendlies, Maria reported urgently. Can you neutralize? The team leader asked. Maria studied the situation through her scope. The targets were partially concealed behind realistic building materials, with only small portions visible for engagement. The range was 650 meters, and wind conditions had changed since her last shot. Positive. Engaging now. Her shots eliminated both threats before they could interfere with the assault team's mission, earning immediate acknowledgement from the team leader and demonstrating the critical importance of skilled Overwatch support. As the exercise concluded, Maria maintained her position until the assault team had completed their objectives and begun extraction. Only after receiving clearance did she break down her position and move to the designated rally point for mission debrief. The after-action review was conducted with the same professional thoroughness that had characterized the entire evaluation process. Each phase of the mission was analyzed in detail, with particular attention to coordination, decision-making, and individual performance under pressure. Outstanding Overwatch support, the team leader commented during Maria's individual assessment. Your target identification and engagement capabilities directly contributed to mission success. More importantly, your communication and tactical awareness showed that you understand how precision marksmanship integrates with team operations. Sarah conducted the final portion of Maria's evaluation, reviewing all aspects of her performance throughout the comprehensive exercise. The discussion covered technical skills, tactical thinking, leadership potential, and adaptability under changing conditions. Maria, your performance throughout this evaluation process has been exceptional by any standard, Sarah began, consulting a thick folder of assessment documents. You've demonstrated the technical excellence, mental discipline, and character traits that we require for special operations assignments. Maria felt a surge of excitement, but maintained her professional composure while waiting for Sarah's complete assessment. Based on your overall evaluation, I'm recommending you for immediate consideration by our Special Operations Recruiting Command. You've earned the opportunity to pursue advanced training and eventual assignment to an operational unit. The words carried an impact that Maria hadn't fully anticipated. After months of training and evaluation, she had achieved her goal of earning recognition for special operations potential. However, Sarah continued, I want you to understand what this recommendation means. Special operations training is more demanding than anything you've experienced so far. The failure rate is high, and the physical and mental demands are extreme. Understand, ma'am. I'm prepared for those challenges. I believe you are. Your performance suggests that you have the foundational capabilities necessary for success in advanced training. As the evaluation officially concluded, Maria was given instructions for reporting to the Special Operations Recruiting Command within the next week. The paperwork would take time to process, but her acceptance into the Special Operations community was now a matter of administrative completion rather than capability demonstration. That evening, Maria called her mother to share the news that she could discuss without revealing classified details about her training. They've accepted me for advanced military training, Mama. It's a significant opportunity. I'm proud of you, Mija. You've worked so hard for this. It's going to mean more time away from home and more demanding assignments. You've always been strong, even as a little girl. If this is what you want, I support you completely. As Maria prepared to leave Fort Bragg for her next assignment, she reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple request for rifle modifications. That request had been ridiculed by some of her peers, but it had opened doors that she had never imagined possible. The modified rifle that had started this process would accompany her to special operations training, where it would serve as both a tool and a symbol of her commitment to excellence. More importantly, the confidence and skills she had developed throughout the evaluation process would serve as the foundation for whatever challenges lay ahead. 2 months later, Maria found herself at the Special Operations Training Facility, preparing for the next phase of her military career. As she unpacked her equipment in the Spartan barracks that would be her home for the coming months, she encountered her modified rifle one more time. The weapon bore small signs of the intensive use it had received during her evaluations, but its performance remained flawless. More than just equipment, it represented the journey from a regular infantry soldier to someone being trained for the military's most demanding missions. On her final day at Fort Bragg, Maria had encountered General Morrison during a routine base function. The general was known throughout the Army as a demanding leader who had risen through special operations ranks to achieve his current position. Staff Sergeant Santos, the general had said, approaching her after reviewing her personnel file. I understand you're moving on to advanced training. Yes, sir. General Morrison studied her with the careful attention of someone who had seen many soldiers transition to special operations careers. Your evaluation reports are impressive, but I'm curious about something. Sir, the general lowered his voice slightly, speaking with the tone of someone sharing information of particular significance. Your marksmanship scores indicate capabilities that are quite rare. Have you ever heard the term black Talon mark? Maria felt a chill of recognition, though she wasn't sure why the phrase seemed familiar. No, sir. It's a designation we use for marksmen who demonstrate exceptional natural ability combined with perfect technical execution. Based on your evaluation scores, you've achieved that standard. The general paused, studying Maria's reaction to his words. Less than 1 in 10,000 soldiers ever reach that level of capability. It's something that can't be taught. Either you have it or you don't. As Maria began her special operations training, she carried with her the knowledge that her abilities were recognized at the highest levels of military leadership. The journey that had begun with a ridiculed request for equipment modifications had led to opportunities and recognition that exceeded her most ambitious expectations. The path ahead would be challenging, but Maria was prepared to meet whatever demand were placed upon her. She had proven herself capable of exceptional performance, and she was determined to continue exceeding the standards set for soldiers in the military's elite units. Her story had begun with a simple belief that she could perform better with properly configured equipment. It had evolved into recognition that she possessed rare natural abilities that, when combined with intensive training and unwavering determination, marked her as one of the Army's most promising special operations candidates. The rifle that had started her journey would continue to serve her throughout her special operations career, but the confidence and skills she had developed would prove to be her most valuable assets in the challenging assignments that lay ahead.